Hey coaches, welcome to one of my favorite modules all about the Buddha Belly Life Plate. So this is kind of a fun one we're going to teach because I'm going to not only explain the Buddha Belly Life Plate to you for your ability to use it with clients or use a system like this with clients, but I'm also going to dig back into the more atypical food construct of the food pyramid, all the way up to, about our 2020 edition of what I think the FDA and stuff is calling it now the My Plate, which is I will say it is an upgrade from the food pyramid, but we're going to dig into both of those and why the Life Plate is our recommended tool for using with coaches and it's a little more customizable. So I'm going to go through a little bit of that with you. I'm going to put some stuff up on the screen so you can see it. It's funny actually that they came out with the My Plate. I'm not exactly sure what year it was. I'll have to look that up. But we did the Life Plate back in 2015 when the book was published. It was actually probably more like 2014. But so it's really interesting. So it's cool to see things in mainstream starting to evolve a little bit, right? But this is gonna be really great to go over. So firstly, what we are gonna dive into, you guys, is I'm gonna put up on the screen here the old school food pyramid. So if you are anywhere in the vicinity of my age, so I'm 36 now almost, and you will see the traditional food pyramid. Now the food pyramid was constructed, and if you are involved in holistic health, which if you are here taking this course, you are involved in holistic health, you understand a little bit of food politics and who pays for what and the industries that are involved in, that have massive influence usually over a lot of recommendations, I'd say, with food. So it trickles all the way down to our school system and to our kids. So the traditional food pyramid, here's a few things we're going to show. So if you'll see the very bottom there, where they have the excessive carbohydrates. So the bottom of the pyramid is supposed to showcase the most of what we're supposed to eat. So according to the food pyramid, we're supposed to go buck wild on carbohydrates, of which are not, they're not really specified. In fact, they call it the bread group, cereal, and pasta group. So apparently majority of our diet is supposed to be bread, cereal, and pasta. Then you'll move your way up and okay, this is where we see fruits and veggies, which is great. It's not nearly enough fruits and veggies. So you'll see right here that we have about 3 to 4 servings or 3 to 5 servings of veggies, 3 to 4 servings of fruit. Well, that's a lot of fruit if we're having all that bread and grain, especially if you've got blood sugar issues, and most people need to maintain their blood sugar. So this is some things that are wrong with this. It's not nearly enough vegetables, like actual real vegetables. They're going to give us, it's not terrible. I mean, they're going to give us 3 to 5 servings here. If you're following a Buddha Belly Life Plate, you're going to get at least 8 servings in a day or plus of just veggies, mind you. Okay, so we're going to go over that after we go through these two. So then you go up and you'll see it doesn't specify. So we've got the protein group and then the dairy group. Gotta love the dairy group. So the protein group is not specified, and like we do when we do the Life Plate, we will give different options. You will have people who are diehard vegan, vegetarian, or they just switch up their protein. But it doesn't specify what kind of protein, doesn't specify what quality of protein. If we are consuming meat and eggs, things like that, we really want to push for as high a quality as protein as possible because it's going to have higher omega-3 content. We're not going to be eating animals that are obese and riddled with sickness and cancer because they were fed an unnatural diet of corn and soy. We want those animals that have eaten grass and plants and bugs because they're going to have a high omega-3 content, like fish do, right? Like our healthy fish do that are swimming in the ocean, consuming what they're supposed to be consuming. If they're not coming in contact with massive, toxins in our water, then they have this omega-3 content, and that's beautiful. And actually, your wild-caught animals, so if you're a hunter, you'll see a lot of, free range, wild deer, elk, etc. will have very high omega-3 content. And so will a lot of chicken and even the eggs of chickens that are naturally grazed on grass and bugs and the things that they were intended to. So specifying what kind of protein is really a big deal. It affects our inflammation markers, it affects our gut, it affects our fat contents and our overall inflammation throughout our whole entire body. So this is really, really important. So it's not specified at all on here. Then we have the dairy group. And again, if you're a gut health coach, dairy is one of the most inflammatory things we can consume. It's very, very, like cheese, for instance, is higher in saturated fats and cholesterols and stuff than in an unhealthy manner than a lot of meats are. And this is because it is so overly processed. It's not the dairy that we used to get from the farm. Unless you're consuming raw animal products straight from the farmer, non-pasteurized, and the animal was grazed on, again, grass and a natural diet, then you'll have a little different composition of dairy. But when you're following a protocol, it's best to avoid dairy. And then if you're going to add it back in, we're going to add in something that is of a healthier type of dairy. But they've got a big old dairy group there. Because we have a big old dairy industry. So it's really important that we have that dairy group there on the traditional food pyramid. And then you're going to see on top, that little one at the top that I think when we were all kids, we were all like, yes, the triangle at the top, right? Which most of our diets, even still to this day in the US and in a lot of industrialized cultures, that little fraction is not a little fraction. We eat way more sugar and garbage than we should. But that's supposed to be for treats. According to the traditional food pyramid, this is for sugars, treats, and fats, just generically for fats. All right, once again, if we break down fats, there are different kinds of fats. Our bodies need fat. Our brain runs on fat. I mean, our brain, our cognition, fat is so important, but it has to be the right kind of fats. It's not healthy fats, then they're inflammatory fats. And fat and sugar don't always belong in the same category. Sugar, refined sugar, treats, garbage, junk food, processed foods can always go in the small category. That always belongs together. But fat is not just a generic term for an always bad thing. There's actually really healthy fats, and really healthy fats have an absolute important place in their own little box in our diet. And, unfortunately, they negate that. So fast forward, I'm not sure, I'll have to look into this, but then they came out with, we've got the MyPlate. This was a huge improvement from where we started. I will give them that. Very big improvement. So we're gonna put it up on the screen. We've got it on the screen here and you'll see. So not to pick the plate apart, but just to show you so that when we get to the Buddha Belly Life Plate, you can understand why we do what we do. So on the MyPlate, you'll see that there is an area, it's a little short on the veggies, right? So it's not bad, okay? At least like we're getting some of that. Veggies look bigger, okay? Then we've got fruit and grain. At least they're saying grain. That maybe makes us think that they mean a little bit more whole grain and not processed bread and pasta and white flour and refined things. So let's just give the benefit of the doubt and hope that they mean grain in a healthier sense. But the portions that we got on this plate, I mean, we are half grain and fruit. Really, most people can pick one. I mean, honestly, and we're going to specify that a little more when I get into the Life Plate. But that's about half the plate they've got there. Again, unspecified protein. We just have generic protein. If someone is loading up on beans and legumes, that's going to have an extra carbohydrate content. How they're prepared is a big deal. What type of protein we're consuming, again, is a big deal. The quality of protein, where we're getting that, where it's from, is again, and it's unspecified. And again, there's nowhere for healthy fat. We still hate fat. We just haven't, back when the sugar industry really kind of bought their way out of accountability for the massive amount of health issues that were coming about because of refined sugar and its effects on the body. And they really made fat this just terrible thing, this enemy. Even though now we know no fat is created, fat is not just created equal. The fat still is has a bad rap. It still apparently cannot find its place on the MyPlate for recommendation. So that's unfortunate. And once again, you will see in that handy dandy little corner there, in a nice little cup, we have dairy. Again, we don't need to go over that again. We're not saying no, never dairy. We're just saying conventional dairy is usually highly inflammatory for most people. It is a high allergen. It actually has the same molecular makeup as gluten and how the body responds to it for a lot of people. And it is not what it was. It's stripped of many of its enzymes and vitamins and nutrients that make it more digestible, that made it more healthy when it was in its raw form. So again, So yeah, so look that over real good. This is improvement. Thankfully, it is improvement. You know, we're seeing it move somewhere. So now, the Buddha Belly Life Plate, okay? Why do we make this? We didn't just design it because there was, you know, we don't have favor for any food industry. We don't have a need to promote or add in somebody that doesn't belong there or overemphasize anything that shouldn't be overemphasized. So with the Buddha Belly Life Plate, again, we're gonna put this one on the screen and you guys will have this download in your download section. It should be within this module. And the way that we designed the Buddha Belly Life Plate, you will see, is half veggies, half your plate is veggies, okay? So everybody's always like, you know, what does that mean? I mean, there's a big difference if you're eating solid broccoli or if you're eating, you know, lettuce, right? So you're gonna fill half plate of solid broccoli. Again, this is just a general visual for people. It's really helpful. And I would say about, you know, a thicker vegetable, about an inch or so, an inch or a little under on your plate, or a ½ inch, I'd say, if it's a thick vegetable, is probably about equivalent to a pile of greens, like if you're having a salad on half the plate. So you can kind of keep that in mind. So like, you know, we'll do green beans, we'll do broccoli, things like that. And the size of your plate matters, you know. So if it's a teeny plate because you're not super hungry, then pick a teenier plate. If it's, you know, you're a little more hungry, pick a bigger plate. But you're going to be loading up on so much healthy, wholesome roughage that it's going to fill your body, and it's going to, the way this design is designed, it's going to really balance out your macronutrients. It's going to keep your blood sugar really stable, and it's just really ideal. So half of that plate or so is going to be your veggie, particularly a green vegetable. So trying to avoid the starchy vegetables. Those are going to be more with our gluten-free starches. So your green veggies, your lettuce, you know, your broccoli, your green beans, your cauliflower rice, your whatever. Okay, you'll see that in your lists. And if you're going over this with clients, if you're a coach and you're going over this with clients, then do show them, you know, kind of what lists they have kind of for each area. So we'll move on to area 2 here. We're gonna have fermented food, which is optional, and I will strongly suggest that you leave the fermented food out unless someone's gut is already in a state of rehabilitation. So if they're already, unless your gut is already pretty good, you don't just want to add in fermented foods, because as great as they can be, like sauerkraut, you know, raw sauerkraut and things like that, the problem is that they're feeders, so they just feed everything. So because so many people have overgrowth issues, we just don't want to dump that on top of it at the moment. So leave out the fermented foods if you think that that is a level of concern for your client. So this brings us to 3, and you can just, you know, you can kind of just split that. That's not a huge chunk of your plate. I mean, some people have to start with fermented foods like 2 tablespoons max in their meal. So it really isn't just a huge portion if it's there or it's not. 3, omega-3 fat. Oh, look at that. We have fat on our plate. Everybody else left out fat and we didn't leave out fat. So omega-3 fats are really important for anti-inflammatory, for muscle and joint, you know, lubrication, for brain health, for, you know, and cognitive function, for so many things, for hormonal health, especially for your females. We have just a rampant cases of adrenal issues and thyroid problems and in infertility, etc. And we have a lot with men too, in a little different, in our reverse, you know, with testosterone, etc. So hormones are really, they love healthy fat. So healthy fat in the form of omega-3. So we got avocados and clean olive oil and things like that. That is what we want to add in. So again, look at your list. If you're a coach, make sure you're providing this list for your clients, of a list of things that can go in this box. On to number 4, gluten-free starch. Okay, so why do we say this? We don't really need to explain at this point why we say gluten-free. By this point in the course, you should know why we don't advocate gluten, why it's one of the harshest things for gut and for gut healing and gut function. It's something that needs to go, especially during a protocol. And so it does not include gluten, but starches, now this is where it can get a little funky for people, is because you will have people that still want to consume grain. If they're on a Buddha Belly protocol, they're probably going to be removing grain and legumes for a while. However, if they have an ethical or a philosophical dietary preference, like vegan or vegetarian, things like that, then they may be doing some of these a little bit more grains in that point. You know, like there is no one size fits all, you know, and you will have to prepare them adequately and all of that, but that might go in there. But we say gluten-free starch. Now, technically, fruit can go in here. When we originally designed it, we intended that fruit would be a part of that. So it's either or. You're either picking fruit as your starch or your carbohydrate in your meal, or you're picking a starch as your carbohydrate in your meal. However, honestly, especially if someone's on a gut protocol, keeping fruit consumed on its own is by far more beneficial for the gut. It is rough depending on which fruit we eat. There are a lot of fruits that are really, really high sugar and in sugars and carbohydrates, and the fructose can really feed overgrowth issues, and it just doesn't digest as well when mixed with proteins and fats. So eating it more in a snack area with a veggie or something is much more preferable. So honestly, sticking to a gluten-free starch in that portion of your plate is going to be the best choice. So your sweet potatoes and your, you know, or something like that. And again, you'll have your list and provide that list. 5, finally, clean protein. Clean protein. If you can go for wild meats, wild fish, high in omega-3, as high in omega-3 as you can. We do not have a problem getting omega-6s in our standard American diet. Even as healthy eaters, there's plenty of it. If you eat meat in general and it's not wild, you know, grass grazed and finished, there's a chance that you're getting more omega-6s than you would have ever originally gotten from the animal. So we don't have a problem getting omega-6s. We need to get our omega-3s up. So if we can just put our focus on omega-3s as much as we can, then we're just going to benefit all the way around. Less inflammation, all that stuff. So clean protein. Teach your clients what clean protein looks like. If they don't consume meat or animal products, maybe they're vegetarian and they only consume eggs, then make sure you're getting wild from a local farmer or something as best as you can. I get it's not perfect. We're going to have location differences where things are just not available to us or the people we're working with, but do our best with what we got. Okay, that's going to help the most with inflammation. It's going to benefit your client. It's going to help their gut. And if they are, we do say clean protein because, again, if they do not consume any kind of animal products and they are not, they really, really are against doing that, then you'll have to go off, you know, some of the vegetarian or vegan options on your list with them and make that for them and just teach them how to prepare them properly so that they don't have adverse side effects on the gut, and maybe do some special enzymes and stuff to help the digestive process. So now that you kind of know the breakdown of the life plate, the reason why we do it this way, you guys, the reason why we put it on the plate, and I'm assuming the same reason that they created the My Plate, you know, was that the pyramid didn't make sense to anyone. Like, how do you take that and put that in a day? Am I getting this many servings? It's better to sit down at a meal, look at your plate, dish up your food accordingly. One of the rules that you want to teach your client is that if they're still hungry after they eat, they can go get more food, maybe a smaller plate or a bigger plate, but fill in all of the sections equally. So this way, you're not just going back and loading up on turkey, or you're not just going back and loading up on your sweet potatoes and starches, right? Like, we want to balance that out with our healthy fibers, with our veggies, with our healthy fats. And by doing that, we will keep our macronutrients and our blood sugars and everything more stable, and our appetite more under control. So we're not just looking with our eyes because, you know, someone made an amazing steak and we could just eat more of it, right? And then we aren't really benefiting health-wise as much. So that's one of those rules. So that is why we do the life plate. And you're going to have a copy of this to be able to use with your clients and show them and you know, go over all that. Now, how they can do this, they can actually do meal prep with stuff like this. So even if they want to pre-make their food and put it in a container, you know, again, it's not an exact science. It's not like you're going to measure. We're not telling people to get out scales and measuring cups. There's nothing I hate more than having to measure my food. There's plenty of times I've done it. I really hate it. It brings a lot of stress, and stress is very counterintuitive for health. So this is a way it makes it a lot easier. So even if they have a container, so let's say, you know, you're making lunch, you're meal prepping for the week, and you got a container. I think a lot of us work with, you know, the like rectangular containers, right? You can still kind of do it in that. it's going to give you an idea of the proportion breakdown. So it's easy to do for lunches, it's easy to do for meal prep, it's easy to do for dinner meals if you're cooking foods that are on the Buddha Belly lists, that are gut friendly. And you're going to have to help prepare that for your client to teach them exactly what is going to work for them based on their needs, based on their gut, based on the state of their bacteria, especially if you've ran a test or an analysis on them, based on their symptoms and their dietary preferences. So that's how we do that. Now, breakfast time, it's easy to do a smoothie. It's easy to do like some kind of scramble with veggies and, you know, and a little something on the side. It's not so hard. And even a smoothie is an easy way to kind of incorporate the Life Plate combination as well with your healthy fats, you know, or you use like a non-dairy milk, unsweetened, you know, preferably organic, or make it yourself. You're going to have some of your fats right there. You're going to add in some of your carbohydrates, maybe frozen berries. You're going to add in a bunch of greens. There's half your vegetables right there. You know, and maybe like, you know, collagen protein or a bone broth protein or something like that. And there's your protein. So it's a good philosophy to take even into breakfast. You can do this 3 times a day. And if they're going to want snacks, you encourage snacks like mainly vegetables are going to be your best snacks to go to first. Some fruit is a good one, and that's a good spot for fruit. And then nuts and seeds. So I mean, those are great suggestions. So they've got their meals under control and they've got their snacks under control. And so you equip them with their Life Plate and their food lists. This way you're going to also put a focus on like what they are eating instead of just what they're not eating. It's so challenging to sit here and tell people all the foods that we want to remove when we're on a gut protocol or when we're doing a Buddha Belly, you know, a 6-week or a 3-monther, and they need it so bad. There's not a lot of room. You know, there's not a room sometimes for a little bit of gluten. Sometimes it'll stay in someone's system for 3 months. You know, so that can feel so restrictive and so overwhelming. And please see one of the following classes and modules in here all about our Life Coach First approach that I want you guys to always remember when you're working with people. It's going to make it way more effective for this issue. But it can feel really restrictive. And so a great thing to do is just to focus on what they are eating. Get them their list of their foods that they are eating that are just ideal for them. You're going to have some people that have extreme intolerances where they can only really eat a handful of foods. I've had plenty of clients that started in a state like that. And so that's a lot more challenging to work with, but at least you kind of have something you can go off of with them and give them a lot more guidance, but then make it fun. So focus on what they're making, challenge them to meal prep for a week, challenge them to make their plate, make an actual plate and make it as pretty as they can. And then take pictures of it and, you know, upload it to their Instagram, share it to your group that you're running with everyone, something like that. Challenge each other. Who makes a prettier plate? You know, how many days this week have you stuck to your Buddha Belly Life plates? You know, like, just one meal at a time, all that stuff that they need in their head, that their mindset needs to hang on to. Make it an exciting, positive thing. Make it a creative thing. Get them, you know, having fun with cooking, spiral some zucchini and make it neat. You know, have fun with it, but teach people how to start eating, and they can teach their kids. So if you're working with kids or you're working with people that are going to teach their kids, it's an awesome thing to teach kids. It's just like how they love their little Lunchables. I've found this more often than not that my kids like their little finger foods, their little portions of separate foods. They freak out a lot more when you mix things together, because then they sit there and they feel like they can't avoid any of it, and they can't like emotionally cope with some of the things that are in that mixed food, and so then they start picking through it and everything. So if they have their portions that they can see, make them their own little life plates, make them their own little bowls, and they're going to it's going to be so much easier for them. So I hope that you guys have a good understanding of this. If you have any questions, please ask the closed group, or you can email your main mentor if you want a little bit more elaboration. Always tune into the monthly masterminds too, because those are a great place to kind of elaborate on some of these things, or if you have challenges with your clients. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next module.